2025 Planning and Zoning meeting at 4 o'clock. And before we get into the agenda, we'd like to have our newest member introduce herself.
Oh gosh, you did. I wasn't set up for this. Well, now I know I'm set up for that. Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carrie Bach, and I have Bach & Co. It's a real estate brokerage here in town. I've been involved kind of in the side scenes, back scenes, whatever, of city and county politics and boards and real estate and RV business and all of that for about 35 years. So anyway, it's nice to be here. Thanks
You
for...
started when you were like 10?
Oh, you're so sweet. What do you want for Christmas? What is that Christmas list?
Well, we're very happy to have you on the board.
Thank you
You're a
very
great
much.
addition.
I am honored to be here. This is going to be great.
So anyway, our first agenda on the minutes is approval of the meeting minutes from the October 2nd, which is such a long time ago. Anybody have any corrections or anything that looked at the minutes? I couldn't really.
I'll make a motion to approve as provided.
So a motion to approve in a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, and then we're going to move into the public hearing
Who seconded that? Tabor.
phase. You want to get us into this, Drew?
Yeah. It's a change in zoning from light commercial district C2 to general commercial C3 for the property address at 2905 Memorial Boulevard, Kerrville, Texas. Here is the property in the current zoning. It is part of the future land use as community commercial. And then we'll go through the land use table. With that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. If you have any words you want to say to the...
No, just you don't have any questions.
Yeah, I would just, if you could, before we open the public hearing, I'd just like to, can you give us an idea of what your reasoning is for this,
We've had a bunch of businesses reach out and want to rent it out, mainly trades like general contractor, plumber, electrician, HVAC, roofer, and it's all conditional. We just want to get it changed so we can
Sure.
get a tenant in there.
Okay.
But I will say we will do, because I work for AirTech AC and Heating, and we will move over there if it does get approved.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have any questions? So for that,
It is consistent with the future land use plan as community commercial. And sometimes we caution C3 on community commercial, more so based on the scale of larger properties. That would be more of your regional commercial, your big box stores. Obviously, the site doesn't open itself up to any of that, so it is a smaller site. They are looking for an expanded list of uses. I believe you got it in your backup, but I'll run through here real fast. Steve highlighted the different uses that change from C2 to C3. I'll go through here kind of slow. Just stop me if you have any questions. So you can see it does add a handful of uses. Again, with the scale of the property, I don't see any concerns with C3 on this location. It is on Highway 27, major arterial. Any outside storage would have to be screened if they have any of that. It does allow for some outside storage, but with it having to be screened, it'd be limited on that kind of peninsula type site as to where they could put any outside storage to make sure the screening fence doesn't cause any visibility issues. So the front should remain mostly open as parking lot and vehicles, but not equipment and material storage. So
I'm assuming we received no notices or no.
none.
Well, I'm gonna open, I don't think there's anyone here, but I'm gonna open the public hearing on this at 4:04. And I don't think there's anyone here. I don't see anybody else here. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And do you guys have any questions for the owner before we consider the motion? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the change in zoning from light commercial zoning C2 to general commercial zoning C3.
I'll make a motion to.
You have a motion to approve?
A second?
You have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right. Your motion is approved, and we wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
Bet.
This will go to city council in January.
Yeah.
Is that the year?
Yes.
Yeah, same place, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, then we're gonna move over to 3, conditional and final action for the Windridge Unit 1 final plat.
Yeah, final plat establishing Windridge subdivision unit 1. This is 48.81 acres out of their entire property. Get into the plat here. Because of the size of it, it is broken up into multiple pieces, so this will be the connection off of Loop 534.
So that's the first phase that's closest to the middle school?
Yes.
Okay.
You can see in the little inset, so go back here. You can see the inset where the connection to 534 is, obviously north of the middle school. So this phase just wraps around the north end and goes kind of up into that little valley before those hills get too terribly steep. I'm sure you've all seen the dirt work going on in the last several months, but they are getting closer to completion. So they wanted to get the final plat approved. There's kind of the bulk of it down in that, I guess we'll call it the western portion of that, right up against the middle school. Yeah, at this point, they've resolved all of any concerns. There's no conditions. I believe they've got engineering approval on just about everything, so be ready to record as soon as it's approved.
Anybody have any questions?
Drew, these are, I mean, it's Lennar, right? And
Yes, yeah, it's Lennar subdivision.
Same size houses and stuff that they're doing on the other side? Notice
Some of
these
them will be.
lots-
I think this one, I don't know about unit 1, but the total development will have a little more variation than they had in the first and Windridge,
Mhm.
because they've got a larger footprint. I think they were looking at basically 3 different scale of homes throughout. You can see this section here is pretty small lots.
35 foot wide. What would the setbacks be on those?
15-foot setbacks or 19 for the garage. So obviously the size of those is probably going to be sitting at 19 feet. Then you have larger lots in that northern portion. I can't see, these are 45-foot lots.
And then in between lots, is it just 5 foot?
Yes, 5 foot on each side.
They haven't asked for any variances on those lot sizes?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then if there's no other questions, we'll consider a motion on the approval of the final plat, phase 1. Here,
All motion to approve?
we have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second, any questions? You got any questions, David? All right, we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right. Plat, phase 1 is approved. We'll go into 3B.
Martin, can you switch PowerPoints for me? We thought about setting this up as a separate workshop, but then you'd have to close and reopen the meeting, and I figured with one case, we're all gonna be sitting here anyway, so more or less a workshop today. We've talked about some zoning code updates, some minor tweaks that we've seen over the last few years. I think my first set of notes, probably 2022, on some of these minor changes. Just a list of issues that we've seen working with developers or projects that have come up as small issues, and just wanted to make note of those. Obviously, we got a few years of little things that have added up. Following up with the comprehensive plan update, I've got a few things in here that relate to that as well. So I wanted to go ahead, once we kicked off the comp plan, wanted to wait till it was completed before we went back for a code amendment. So we're gonna cover some definitions and land uses, some residential updates, mixed use zoning updates, some parking ratio discussion, and then, if you'll remember from the comp plan update, introduced, at least on the land use plan and the downtown plan, the university district. And so we'll talk about that. Really today is just kind of getting some general consensus, no official action from the commission. The next step will actually be going to city council for a similar workshop. Then we'll come back to you guys for a formal public hearing through an official adoption process. So open dialogue. If you have any questions, comments as we go through this, just stop me and we can talk about it. One of the first ones for the definitions, the artisan and craftsman workshop. We've had a couple businesses downtown open under this. For example, Clinorm's just opened. Technically, not all of their products are made by hand. So we wanted to just clean up that language and remove the by hand requirement. Obviously, today's technology, at the craftsman scale, you can still have a lot of different equipment involved. But just didn't want that to come up to question for anybody, Clinorm's or others. So we're still not talking James Avery type production, Fox Tank type production. Those are major production facilities. This is still small scale craftsman work. But just wanted to acknowledge that innovation that's come through technology the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years for some of that equipment that they use. We've all seen the success of the local farmers markets, and I'd say flea market. We probably have one flea market technically in town that I'm aware of. But the question has come up a couple times, not through complaints, but just through staff. We currently have a definition for farmers market and flea market. And the farmers market, as you can see, is farming agriculture related products. As you've probably seen through some of the local farmers markets, they are not all farm production products. We have not received any complaints about the open air markets, the pop-up markets, the farmers market, whatever we want to call them. So we really wanted to kind of revamp these two definitions to show that it doesn't have to be farm related product. It's not agriculture related. It can be local retailers selling local goods, whatever they may be. But just making sure that we, rather than make that distinction, we clean it up and just say the pop-up temporary open air market has a place. The more permanent flea market has a place. And just wanted to clarify those two. Reviewing through the code, we have a list of uses that do not have definitions. Normally that's okay, but occasionally something comes up and Steve, if you can give me a good example, I'm trying to think. One that has come up. The independent living for seniors has come up a time or two as to what is that? Well, we don't actually have a definition. So we can either go to the dictionary and piecemeal a definition or adopt one in the code that combines all of that. We do have a few new land uses that we want to introduce into the land use table and therefore provide definitions for. Battery energy storage system, obviously that's come up recently in the area. Data centers, we do not have a general retail on the land use table. So if you don't fall into one of these exact retail categories, we've just kind of been assuming general retail is allowed. And we have a definition for research and development, but it is not listed on the land use table anywhere. So we want to kind of capture that. We'll come back to the technology, innovation, R&D, land use in a little bit. One of the other ones that's come up, we had a kennel that opened in an industrial district, which they are allowed, but technically they were not allowed to sell pet supplies or do grooming because those two uses were not listed on the land use table. So even though they're accessory to the kennel, we just wanted to clean that up and make sure it's understood that the accessory uses that go along with kenneling is permitted. Again, add those 4 new uses to the land use table. When we come back in probably February, we'll go through a detailed list of which districts each of these uses should be in. If y'all have any comments or questions about any of those right now, we can certainly talk about it, but we'll give it our best shot and present that to you later. And again, revising the farmers market and flea market into market and open air pop-up market.
Under the battery energy storage system,
Mhm.
what zoning does that require?
Right now it doesn't. So since it's not listed on the land use table, let me back up. Any use that's not on the land use table could come before the planning commission as a conditional use in any district. So since it's a new thing that has come about with solar and wind energy, we figured it'd be a good time to go ahead and put it on the land use table. Then we can decide where we think it should go.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be part of it.
Right.
Where can it go?
The benefit of it being a conditional use only is you get case by case chance to look at it always. But I think since we're ahead of it, I think that's let's prepare for it rather than react to it. So one of the big things that's come up with the battery centers and the data centers is the environmental impacts. So one of our chapters, supplementary development requirements for certain uses. We are recommending that the battery centers and the data centers are restricted on how close they can go to a floodplain. If there is any battery issues, we certainly don't want that
Correct.
right next to the river and creeks. So similar to a lot of our automotive uses, they are prohibited within 100 feet of the floodplain. Conditional use permit is required within 500 feet of the floodplain or 1,000 feet of Lake Nimitz, which is our primary water source. And again, we can talk about which districts we think they're appropriate in. Off the top of my head, I would start with industrial, and that's probably it, because they're obviously large industrial complexes.
So data center is going to be a new land use?
Yes,
Data centers are notoriously high power requirement.
right. Yeah, between the energy requirement, the water use, battery backup systems that they have to implement, we just want to make sure we have those in the right place.
Question on the batteries. Recent technology, we got tons of different kinds of batteries.
Right.
Will we have definitions of those and the dangers related to them, like the old lead acid batteries we typically have in cars, kick out hydrogen gas.
Right.
When you're charging, you got a real potential problem. So,
I didn't intend to go that detailed. We certainly can if we need to. My thought was, since we're trying to protect the floodplains and the creeks and rivers, all battery-associated
okay.
systems should be restricted on how close they can go.
Basically, what you're gonna have in these battery storage systems is power storage.
Yeah.
And that's really what's driving these best systems.
And then the data centers typically have generators and battery backup systems built into their complex. Obviously not the scale of a battery energy storage system, but the other hesitation I have in getting into specific battery types, as new technology comes out, we have to keep coming back and
Right.
adding the new pieces back in. Certainly no chemist, but I would imagine they all have their pros and cons. Both for
Pardon
the-
my ignorance, but aren't there, or are there already, like big government rules on how these things are handled, stored, or no? That would then fall into whatever y'all
There's
decide
federal
to do.
there's federal government
automatically.
standards,
Yeah.
but there's not, like the county's going through that right now. They're trying to stop any battery storage because they have a lot of potential for issues that are, a normal fire department would not want to deal with it. And
Yeah.
I think, I know that I read where one of the counties that they consulted with has their own fire marshal. And Kerr County does not have its own fire marshal.
Correct. I've seen a couple of cities that have some setback requirements to help mitigate some of the fire concerns. We can certainly look at that too. If there needs to be a setback from a property line or setback from residential, we can look at that and include that in those supplementary requirements for these type of uses.
One of the things I would think that you would do right off the bat is for a land use, you would not have these things anywhere in any residential area.
Right. Yeah, so like I said, I think right off the bat, we could say industrial is probably the only only district we would want them in.
Correct.
And then may still put a separation from residential or a larger setback for any structure or building. So that we're making sure that there's at least a good buffer area if they are adjacent to residential. Residential updates. One of the things that we've seen, a lot of the infill projects and either lot splits or vacant lots, our corner lot in all of our residential districts requires a 15-foot side setback on the corner. Most of town that I've driven around in was not built that way. I don't know when the 15-foot setback was put into place. Newer subdivisions obviously do comply with that because they've been built under these rules. But on the infill, we see a lot of either vacant lots or homes torn down where they want to build a new home. And now they're having to squeeze what looked like a slightly larger lot, didn't really account for a 15-foot setback. From a safety standpoint, I don't see any issue with a reduced setback. The fence would be allowed behind the front setback up to 0 on a corner street. So if the fence is already at 0, I don't see any harm in the house being at 5 feet. But that does allow for those infill projects to be able to use more of the lot than they currently can. Except for R3 multifamily, I think we leave the 15-foot setback there. Any questions or concerns
You
there?
presently have 15-foot setbacks in R1?
Yes, on the corner lot,
Just a corner lot?
just the corner.
Okay.
Some of the newer subdivisions you'll see on the plat, the corner lots usually 5 or 10 feet wider because of that. I know Lennar ran into a few of their lots where the 15-foot lots, or the 15-foot setback was difficult to even fit some of their smaller prototypes. They had the lot wider, but not wide enough. But more so on the infill projects is where we've seen the issue. When we revamped R2 and the new zoning code to allow the multiple residential housing types, one of the original discussions we had was that on a block face, you can only have one housing type. So if the first lot developed on that block was a single-family home, if the next property wanted to build a duplex, they wouldn't be allowed to. Even though the zoning allows it, they're limited by that block face. So we're actually recommending we remove that. You can see some of the older parts of town, you've got a duplex in the middle of a lot, or middle of a block, maybe a garden home and then a single-family home all in one block. They're all still single-family. There are some building code setback requirements, but that'll be handled by the building code, so there shouldn't be any safety issues there. I've seen quite a bit of it in River Hill, where there's some areas that were platted for townhomes. Somebody buys 2 or 3 townhome lots and wants to build a single-family home, technically they would have to build a townhome. So for the intent of allowing that different diversity of housing types, we're recommending remove that restriction.
So would that cover if you've got a single-family home and you got a single-family home next to it and someone wants to tear down that single-family home, build a duplex in there, would that be allowed?
That would be. The duplex does require a larger lot, so the lot would still have to meet that requirement. But yeah, if you had a large lot and
The only caveat I see to that, might give it some thought.
and if it's zoned R2, again, all those housing types are already allowed. It's just the couple areas of town where we do have that mix already. Technically, that would be prohibited by today's standards. Another one for consideration, the accessory dwelling unit. R1A and R2 both allow for an accessory dwelling unit, whether it's attached or detached. However, the ADU is required a 25-foot rear setback, whereas if I'm building less than 1,000 square foot shed, I can go to a 5-foot rear setback. Our thought was allow the accessory dwelling unit to meet the accessory building setback requirements. That if you're building a small efficiency unit behind a house, they actually could go to the 5-foot rear setback instead of that 25-foot setback. It's pretty restrictive on some of our older neighborhoods.
That's from the back lot line?
Correct. Moving into the mixed use zoning district. With the mixed use being a new concept with the current zoning code when we adopted in 2019, we had included a requirement for a concept plan for a new zone case going to mixed use. The issue we've seen with that is the mixed use zoning has its own development regulations, setback requirements, height restrictions, parking requirements, just like any other commercial district, but we don't require the concept plan and tie them to that concept plan for other districts. So we've had one or two cases over the years that have looked at a mixed use zoning so that the property is marketable for either commercial or multifamily or both. But without a buyer or a plan in mind, they can't even make that zoning request until they have a full site plan developed. since we already have standard development regulations for that district, my recommendation is we remove that concept plan requirement. Any questions there? I think we talked about this one, but I'm not sure if anyone on the current board, Mike and David, you might have been on the board. One of the issues we have with multi-tenant buildings, as the tenants transition in and out, we have to actually check the parking ratio for every tenant. So if a building is fully occupied and functioning, and a new tenant comes in that actually requires more parking as a standalone business, if the entire property doesn't have enough parking, that tenant cannot move in. So it's not uncommon to see a multi-tenant parking ratio, more of an average for multi-tenant buildings. So that it's up to the market and the property owner to make sure they've got a good blend of tenants. You don't want a 4 or 5 unit shopping center of all evening restaurants, because that's going to take up a lot of parking. But if you have an office building that's 8 to 5 and a bar that's 5 to midnight, there's obviously not a need for double the parking. So we're recommending some kind of average of parking ratio for multi-tenant centers. Our current parking requirements for general office is 1 to 300. For medical office is 1 to 200. Retail is 1 to 300, and restaurants are 1 to 100. Trying to average those two, and obviously taking a little bit of a guess, but multi-tenant at 1 to 250 should cover enough parking for most multi-tenant buildings. And then we've talked about possibly considering a decrease over a certain square footage. I started at 20,000 square feet. I'm gonna reach out to some commercial developers. Like our current mall owner has properties across the country, and see if they have any specific recommendations. Certainly looking to you guys with real estate experience, if you have any recommendations, where that breaking point should be. Because I know obviously if we did the mall at 1 to 250, we would have more parking than they could ever use based on something that size. Tractor Supply, what's the new place called? Ollie's, the Chinese food place.
Mhm.
The only time I've ever seen that parking lot full is on Tybee games when they play Fredericksburg. So, obviously those larger scale buildings don't need the same parking ratio, but just wanted to throw this out there for consideration. I've looked at a couple other cities that do some averaging. Even the average ranges anywhere from 1 to 150 to 1 to 400. I don't want to underpark anything, but at some point I think it's on the market and the developer to figure out what's the best fit for them.
So this really doesn't take into account the number of tenants in the building? It's
No.
specifically just for the square footage of the strip center or whatever it is, right?
So if you're going to build 10,000 square foot building, you put in your 250 parking spaces. Did I do that right? Yeah. Then the tenant mix obviously shares all of that parking anyway. But you see a lot of our larger shopping centers are way overparked. So it's not an adequate use of land. You got extra impervious area that's not necessary. Some of those shopping centers could be on a lot smaller lot or have additional pad sites or tenant spaces if we did this, but.
So this is a way to maximize or to increase the amount of square footage on a piece of property by reducing the parking.
Correct.
I mean, a lot of that's gonna be, it's gonna be governed by, the tenant. Can I live with whatever you have in there? If they
Right.
can't, they won't. So I think that's probably a pretty good idea because market's gonna take care of that.
Right. And I've seen over the years businesses that move in to an outdated shopping center that had, 5 parking spaces out front. They either made it work or they closed and moved to a place with a bigger
Correct.
parking lot.
Correct.
Yeah, I think the market really helps drive that. If a property owner has a building that can't get leased because they don't have enough parking, I know we've seen this once here in town, they find a way to build an extra parking lot. So. I'll keep researching and try to find some good examples to see if that 1 to 250 is a good mix. We might do kind of a survey of some existing properties here in town to give you some examples. And if any of you have any recommendations, by all means, reach out and let me know. Another one on parking for accessory dwelling units. Our current code requires 2 parking spaces. I think typically when I think of your traditional accessory dwelling unit, it's a one bedroom or an efficiency. I've seen a few that are 2-bedroom, smaller units, but I think reducing that to 1 parking space would allow more of those to come into play. The biggest reason we've looked at the ADUs and trying to revamp our code is I think this was the 3rd legislative session that the state is proposing ADUs are allowed, period, with no restrictions. That has not passed, but I think it's just a matter of time. So one, trying to stay ahead of it, making sure we have good regulations to allow that increase in density for those that want it. But I am nervous at some point the state may say they're allowed, period, across the board. So I did not propose adding accessory dwelling units to R1 just yet. I think depending upon what the state does, it may come anyway. But currently they are allowed in R1A and R2. So not all of town, but a good majority of town. The University District, again, back to our comp plan update for the downtown plan. Just a little bit of background. The key points, we're creating a diverse district, unique experience that connects both physically and programmatically to Schreiner University to downtown. So we're talking A Street down to just past G Street, where 27 and Water Street merge. Anticipated uses would be mixed-use buildings, food and beverage, a variety of commercial and retail, innovation uses, and a variety of residential products for multifamily and hospitality. So when we did the comp plan in 2018 and created this mixed-use district, obviously a lot of the intent was for, I focus more on the Water Street corridor to be kind of an extension of downtown. The University District, as we've described it, is kind of that extension from downtown to Schreiner, trying to connect with what Schreiner's doing on their innovation and job market creation. But the complaints that we have received is that the mixed-use district is too restrictive for some of the land uses that are at least wanting to be in that area. I think all but 1 property has actually been on Broadway. So one of the recommendations would be to rezone Broadway to C2. So that does open up the list of land uses, like some of our property owners have requested.
What type of land uses are they talking about?
I know at least 1 or 2 have been a contractor looking for a place. C2, a contractor would still be a conditional use permit, as we saw with our case earlier today. But to me, the benefit for this area, C2 would not allow any outside storage. So for a lot of contractors, if they were all indoors, there's not much of a nuisance to any neighboring properties. That's why a lot of your larger contractors get put in more an industrial or heavy commercial district, because they have the large storage lot for all their equipment. But if you look at some of your electricians, HVAC guys, they don't store anything outdoors anymore. Kevin, jump in and tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that stuff's too expensive.
Right.
I was gonna say, copper wire disappears.
Too expensive. They don't keep a huge inventory on hand, because then it's just sitting in a lot or in a building doesn't make them any money. On the retail side, mixed use is not much different than C2. If we decide to go this route, we'll certainly give you a highlighted list like we did with the case today. But I think this would allow a little more flexibility on Broadway, which is an arterial, doesn't have that downtown feel anyway. It does have a similar feel to Sidney Baker as far as the commercial aspect. Still protects Water Street on keeping the mixed use regulations, the smaller setbacks for Water Street, and allows that same feel to carry down towards the university. If you remember, there was the alleyway. I don't think it's on that drawing. No. If you remember from the downtown plan, there's that alley activation between Broadway and Water Street. I don't think anything in this zoning would prohibit that. It would still allow both properties to access the alley. If y'all are good with moving this forward, this will come separate from the zoning code update because it is a zoning change. We'll have to notify all property owners and go through the same routine anyone else does. But just wanted to get y'all's thoughts and see what you.
Are you talking about the alley that runs behind the properties that are on Broadway?
Mhm.
And then the alley behind it towards Water Street?
Correct.
Okay.
And so one of the concepts in the downtown plan was to use that alley as basically a second front for some of those businesses. So if you have some of the innovation uses, you could have a retail shop on Water Street, more of your technology lab or shop in the back that still has its own front on the alley, or vice versa. You have the more of your daily operations up front and more of a retail component in the alley. One of the few places we actually have an alley that functions as an alley. As you guys have seen, most of the neighborhood alleys are fenced in or grown up with weeds because nobody uses them. But in this case, it actually provides some opportunity for some extra frontage for some of those smaller businesses to engage different type of downtown feel. Questions, concerns?
I would think, I mean, the way that it's phrased in the university district and stuff, I mean, you would think, like, when you said contractors and things like that, it's totally against what I was thinking. Like,
too.
more shops, more restaurants,
In a
things
university
for
district.
students and,
Mhm.
more active zone like that. So, but you're talking that more on Water Street and Broadway, just open it up to,
Right. And if you guys think the C2 zoning is way off base and we should stick with the mixed use to stay true to that university district definition, by all means. I'm just more or less responding to the property owners that have said, we want more uses as an option. The other alternative, we could look at changing the mixed use district to allow some other uses, but that doesn't just impact this area, that impacts other mixed use areas in town.
Yeah,
That's
that gets
not-
sticky.
Yeah. You
So
have too many mixed-use districts.
And
that,
we can sit on this one and chew on it again at a later date. I just wanted to throw it out there. Again, this won't run parallel with the code update. It'll be a separate case. We can handle it at a separate time because I've got to send notice to all of these property owners and surrounding areas, so that'll be a room full, I'm sure. But wanted to get your feedback before we step into that. So if you want to stay more true to the university description, we can leave it as is. And some of these property owners can kind of figure out other alternatives.
I really like the university district, concept.
Mhm.
So in essence, what you're talking about is taking that little area out of the university district area and rezoning it? Are
It
you
would still
leaving it in
be-
there but rezoning it?
It would still be the university district. Like I said, my first thought was C2 allows for a few more uses, but not so much that it's going to overtake that university district concept.
it'd be great to see that Broadway whole thoroughfare there cleaned up and just.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's prime for some redevelopment. Again, we've had one or two property owners say the zoning is in the way of that redevelopment. So just throwing it out there. We can go back to the drawing board and come up with some other ideas. We can tweak the mixed-use district, limiting certain uses on an arterial so that it doesn't impact Water Street. We've got a lot of different options, and I'm happy to go back and rethink it if C2 is not the way to go.
maybe we do a side-by-side comparison of what those two uses would look like.
Mhm.
I do know that that district, that east side is really the next kind of development phase, especially for commercial.
Right.
And we need
Perfect
that to
for it
happen.
too,
It's-
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's the area where everything's moving because out west is we're done out that way, you know, it's industrial and that's all it's ever gonna be,
Right.
you know, while we're all alive. You know, it would take too much to change all of that, but this is the area that our growth is starting to point to.
Okay, I'll go back to the drawing board and see if I can come up with some other ideas and get these folks to help me as well. And then, we'll bring
And
back
and
some
it is
side
a
by side.
separate, it's a separate.
Yeah, it's a separate piece.
good.
So we may schedule another workshop and do a more exact side-by-side comparison of mixed use in C2, land uses, setbacks, and then if we come up with some other concepts, we can throw those out as well. We'll just schedule another workshop for that separately. And that is it. Again, the goal is workshop with council in January for a similar conversation. Not the university district, but the code change itself. Back to you guys in February for a public hearing, and then hopefully on to city council in March.
One more question, going
Yes.
back to the accessory dwellings. If the rules are changed
Mhm.
and they can be put in any area,
Right.
we here have regulations on how big a property is and how much you can build dwellings on it, correct?
Correct.
Would that apply, I'm assuming, if this law changes as well, or does that then kick into anybody can do whatever they want, wherever they want, as big as they want?
It depends on what they pass.
Okay,
So, not to get too political, I think a lot of the legislative stuff on the city, particularly the land use side, housing and zoning, being driven by some of your bigger cities that have a desire to be more dense on some aspects, and the community may or may not want it. I've seen everything from, or a bill that limits the minimum lot size down to, I think it was 1,500 square feet for a lot.
Wow.
I've seen bills that say accessory dwelling units are allowed with very they did put some regulation in, but very minimal regulation like lot sizes, parking, setbacks. The same session, there was a bill that said ADUs are not allowed, period. So there's still some infighting on their end, on their side as well. It really just depends on what they pass. I don't know. The last bill that seemed like it had legs for the ADUs basically put in every caveat to prohibit cities from restricting them,
Even the
Could-
size?
even the size.
Wow.
You couldn't restrict size, you couldn't restrict lot size, can't restrict setbacks except for building code setbacks. You couldn't restrict parking
Wow.
requirements. I mean, the list of preemptions on the city side were longer than the bill. So,
I mean, that's just a big
it is.
thing.
And the accessory dwelling unit uses, is that restricted or?
No, it's still just single family. So it would just, if that bill had passed, anywhere residential is allowed, an accessory dwelling unit would be allowed. And the only thing we can do is permit it from a building permit standpoint.
Wow, okay.
Obviously, that one did not pass. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes
Yet.
back. Some of your larger university cities were opposed to it. So I think that's what balanced that one out this time.
I
But
don't see why any city would be in favor of that,
I think we're talking.
because that
big-
does increase density.
Yeah, I think we're talking big three. Austin,
Yeah.
DFW, Houston. They're trying to get as much density as they can so they're not having to expand infrastructure, which there is a balance. It does make sense.
So I don't know why they wouldn't put into this, unlimited accessory dwelling units for cities over 100,000 or something
Right.
like that population, that would be.
I think 3 sessions ago, there was a population size in it. I don't remember what the number was, but cities over X, it's allowed. Cities under X, keep your zoning and control it yourself, but that was not in any of the proposals that I saw this year. So
Wow.
we will see.
Could
From
be
the state
crazy.
legislature standpoint on land use, local control is getting chipped away very
Well,
quickly.
let me tell you something, in the last 2 or 3 sessions, the state legislature has taken away almost all restrictions that HOAs can put in.
Mhm. Yep, I
They're
think
killing HOAs.
and the city's next on the chopping block, so. We're trying to keep reasonable expectations out there, regulations, but, my, right,
Right.
yeah.
That's more trash cans
Everybody's
on the
gonna put in an
street, that's
apartment.
more dogs in the yards, that's
Cars on the street.
terrible, yeah,
Yeah, if there's not a
That's-
parking requirement, they're all parked on the street.
right.
That's why I said, I think reducing it to 1 is reasonable. Getting rid of the requirement puts at least 1 car guaranteed on the street, if there's not a requirement to expand the park, or the driveway, so. Yes, we will see. I stay active in the Texas chapter of the American Planning Association on the legislative side, trying to at least show the reason that local control, which I don't like that word either. What you do in downtown Austin and downtown Kerrville is not the same thing.
Correct.
El Paso, Austin, Dallas are all 3 very different cities, even though they're large cities, but we'll see. Anything else?
Anything else for anyone?
All right.
You
If
got
not,
anything else?
We'll present these to council in January, and then we'll be back for a much more detailed bite at the apple.
All right, with that being said, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Our regular scheduled meeting, the first Thursday, would be January 1st.
Yeah.
We are not doing that. We will meet January 7th.
I'm just gonna tell you right now, I can't make
Yeah,
it.
partying. No.
Too many Negronis.
Wait a minute,
Too
you
many
just got
also-
here, Carrie?
Oh, did I say that?
I go to bed every
They say
year
they'll
at
kick
like
you out with
10.
that.
I didn't
watch
mean to
it in
say
New
that.
York and go to bed.
Yeah,
So-
so we'll see you on January 7th. Y'all have a Merry Christmas and Happy New
All
Year.
You
right.
too, buddy, thank
You
you.
too.
8th. Sorry, Steve didn't kick me hard enough. January 8th.
Yeah, the 8th.
Okay.